Let's talk about quality control. And this is Statements on Quality Control Standards, SQCS. Now, when we talk about quality control, this is within a CPA firm on all of their jobs. So what it says is we need to establish a system of quality control within the firm on all of their jobs to make sure that the firm is adhering to all the different quality control standards. We want to make sure that, again, we want to make sure that the public feels that the company is going through and making sure their staff is independent of the clients. They're making sure that their staff is ethical. They're going through and proper channels of hiring people, training people, promoting people, and so on. So when we talk about quality control, I'm going to write here quality control. These are quality control standards, and this is within the CPA firm on all of their engagements. So on all of their jobs, we want to make sure that these standards are being adhered to. It says here, a CPA firm must establish a system of quality control designed to provide it with reasonable assurance that the firm and its personnel comply with professional standards and applicable regulatory and legal requirements. This relates to accounting and an auditing practice. It says quality control standards complement those that are applied primarily at the individual level, such as code of conduct. Each firm is different. The specific procedures depend on the size of the firm, the nature of the practice, the organizational structure, and the cost-benefit considerations. So there's different elements of quality control. A good way to remember this is heal me. Heal me. That's my mnemonic. Heal me. Now, these are the different standards. So what it says here is some of these different elements are human resources, HR. So HR, human resources, that deals with personnel management. So it should establish policies and procedures for effective hiring, development, assignment, and advancement of staff. So what we're saying is we want to make sure that from the HR standpoint, that we're bringing people in, that we're making sure we're hiring quality, competent people. We're then training them, developing them, assigning them jobs properly, and advancing them within the firm. That's human resources HR. So I call it personnel management. Ethical requirements, that deals with making sure that your staff is acting, that they're independent, that they're acting ethically. Firms should establish procedures to ensure the independence is maintained, and the purpose is to ensure that the firm will always be able to act with integrity and objectivity in the performance of the work. So again, there's those words that we've talked about, integrity and objectivity. But again, I don't want you to confuse this with your generally accepted auditing standards, because GAS talks about not the firm, but this talks basically about the auditor. And it talks about the individual audit engagement and what the auditor needs to do. Here it's within the firm on all their engagements. Here it is the auditor on each individual engagement. Because on each individual job, the auditor needs to be trained. They should be independent. They should act with due professional care. They should be competent. They should, plan the audit. They should look at internal control. They should do substantive testing and so on. This is on each individual job. The auditor needs to do this. You need to adhere to generally accepted auditing standards. Remember, we talked about these are the measure of the quality of the auditor's work. This is the auditor on this one job versus quality control is the firm on all of their jobs. For example, when I worked at Deloitte many, many moons ago in downtown LA, I started working at Deloitte, and as I started working there, one of the things they asked me is, what stock do I own? My parents, my brothers, if I had kids at the time, all this stuff. So they want to make sure that I'm independent with respect to all the clients the company works with, even if I'm not on the job. Let's say, for example, my dad was CEO. He was CEO of a huge company that was audited by Deloitte. Obviously, they would say, you know what, Raj, we think you're great. Why don't you go work at a different firm? Because even if I'm not on the job, they don't want to appear to not be objective, unbiased, neutral, independent, and so on. So with independence, we talk about here independence, but that deals within the firm on all the jobs. Here we talk about independence, but that's this one auditor on this one particular job. right? I'm auditing ABC Co. No direct, no material indirect interest in ABC. Here, we're auditing ABC. Make sure your relatives aren't part of ABC's upper management, or maybe you shouldn't take the job at this client. All right, acceptance and continuance of clients' relationships, making sure that when you bring on a new client that they have integrity, make sure that as you maintain the job, they still have integrity. You don't want to associate yourself. So you want to have a way within the firm on all their jobs of checking that. Leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm, we call that the tone at the top. It says the firm's leadership must assume ultimate responsibility for the firm's quality control. Monitoring, we want to make sure that we're complying with all the other standards. Engagement performance, the firm should establish policies and procedures to ensure that it meets applicable professional standards in the performance of its engagements. Policies and procedures also need to be established for resolving differences of opinion. We talked about that with supervision, so that the confidentiality, safe custody, integrity, accessibility, and retrievability of engagement documentation are maintained. So we need to make sure that these are policies and procedures that are established. So again, you'll see the difference. Quality control versus GAS. Generally accepted auditing standards or standards, the auditor on this one job versus quality control within the firm on all their jobs. Now, we also have quality control for an engagement conducted in accordance with GAS. This is quality control not only at the firm level, but at the engagement level. This is AUC 220. It says here a CPA is required to implement quality control procedures at the engagement level to give the audit a reasonable assurance of compliance with professional standards, applicable laws and regulations, the issuance of a report that is appropriate. Specific requirements include the engagement partner is responsible for the overall quality of the engagement. So that would be the partner. Alertness to the risk of non-compliance with ethical requirements. Procedures related to the acceptance and continuance of the client relationship. Considerations related to assigning personnel. May involve the use of personnel with specialized skills or external specialists. Engagement performance. So engagement performance, gee, that sounds kind of familiar because we still talked about that as well. That was our engagement performance down here. So there's some overlap. Monitoring the engagement, engagement documentation, issues identified and resolutions related to compliance with ethical requirements, conclusions regarding compliance with independent requirements, conclusions regarding acceptance and continuance, and nature, scope, and conclusions. Quality control requirements for engagement performance indicate the engagement partner's responsibility for all of these items, making sure the direction, reviewing the results, consulting, making certain that an engagement quality review is performed, and making certain that the firm's policies are followed in dealing with differences of opinions in case that exists. So you can see that there's kind of overlap. This deals with the firm on all their jobs. Quality control for an engagement conducted in accordance with GAS says, kind of like what this does, this says what you need to do on this one job, but with this new, under the Clarity Project, what this new standard basically says is we're taking the quality control at the firm level and also making it applicable at what? At the individual engagement level as well.